Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Alice. I hope you guys are having a fantastic weekend, especially with all of the astrological stuff that's going on. We had the full strawberry moon last night. The energies have been crazy, the eclipses and all of that. So I hope you guys are taking time for some self-care with that. Today we're going to finish up what we started last week. And unfortunately, I still can't answer the question about which one is the correct set of 10 commandments. But what we're going to talk about today is actually what sparked this little adventure. So we are talking about Moses and the Exodus from Egypt and the 10 Commandments. It's a story that we all know, but like I've said before, would you be surprised if I told you that, like most things, there's more hidden under the surface here? Surprise, surprise. So today we're going to take a little dive down the rabbit hole and talk about some more theories about Moses, the Exodus from Egypt, and the 10 Commandments. Warning, okay? This video may be triggering for some. So I totally understand if you click off of it, if you don't want to watch it, or if it throws you in a tailspin. It did me too at the beginning. The book of Exodus in the Bible is about the liberation of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt during the 13th century. The beginning chapters narrate the story of Egyptian bondage, the Exodus from Egypt, and the journey to Mount Sinai under the leadership of Moses, where the second half of the book tells of the 10 Commandments and the covenant that was established between God and Israel at Sinai. The name of the book derives from the Septuagint, which is a Greek version of the Hebrew Bible that was made for Greek-speaking Jews in Egypt in the 2nd and 3rd centuries and was adopted by early Christian churches. The use of Exodus was to designate the deliverance of the Israelites from the Egyptian bondage and their safe passage through the Red Sea. But the question remains, did the Exodus really happen for the reason that we are all taught? Who was Moses really, and where did the 10 Commandments derive from? A few months ago, I was presented with an article from a credible source that left me with all these questions and more. And again, what sparked this little trip into the rabbit hole. This article we are talking about today was written by Dr. Kwame Nantambu and was published December 18th of 2009, called The Real Origins of the 10 Commandments. And I will have that linked in the description box if you guys would like to read that for yourselves. Dr. Nantambu is a professor in the Department of Pan-African Studies at Kent State University here in the United States. Disclaimer number 2. Before we get too far into this, although I do not agree with some of his ideas, this does not make them any less interesting or valid. Like I have said before, our opinions and thoughts are what makes us all individual and unique, something we should be celebrating in all people. It is in listening and taking time to understand the thoughts and opinions of others that we can gain compassion, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding and growth. Let's start off with shattering an illusion right off the bat here. Moses was a black African man who was born in ancient Kemet during the reign of Pharaoh Haramabab. I'm sorry guys, I will butcher names left and right. But if you want to know him, you can always find him on Google. It's not that hard. And he spent most of his life in Egypt, and he was married to an Ethiopian woman and had 2 sons. Yes, I realize that this shatters the illusion that all biblical characters were of Caucasian descent, but this is a fact I can buy into. All we need to do is look logically at the geographical origins, and that will speak volumes. Dr. Nantambu states in his article that the Exodus from Egypt didn't happen for the reasons we were all taught, and that the origins of the 10 Commandments are not what we all think. According to Dr. Nantambu, Moses was a high priest during the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, and he would have been familiar and knowledgeable with the 42 negative confessions and also the 10 categories of sins that existed in ancient Kemet at the time. Moses would also be familiar with the spiritual concept of monotheism that Pharaoh Akhenaten had introduced to his people already. So it would not have been a stretch for Moses to establish a new religion for his people as a result of his spiritual education and training. When Moses reached Mount Sinai during the Exodus, he took and then collapsed the 42 negative confessions into the 10 commandments, and he continued to embrace the concept of monotheism. Moses used the concept of fire to receive the 10 commandments because in ancient Kemet at the time, the spiritual God force was represented by fire. In so many words, Dr. Nantambu states, the religion and followers of Moses' teachings today are actually African in origin, including Christianity. Let's give that a minute to sink in and back up a little bit, because we need to gain clarification on what the 42 negative confessions and the 10 category of sins are. The 42 negative confessions and 10 categories of sins derives from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And coincidentally, some have referred to it as the ancient Egyptian Bible or the scary book of occult. Really, it's neither. It's a funerary text with instructions for the soul in the afterlife. The actual translation of the work's title is the Book of the Coming Forth by Day. Because the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul was eternal and one's life on this planet was only a brief aspect of the whole eternal journey, it was considered vital that the soul have some kind of guidebook to navigate to the next phase. The negative confessions, also known as the Declaration of Innocence, is a list of 42 sins which the soul of the deceased can honestly say it has never committed when it stands in judgment at the afterlife. The most famous list comes from the Papyrus of Ani, a text from the actual Egyptian Book of the Dead. These negative confessions represent the first moral code of ethics that were invented dating back into the BC era. These were developed before there was even a Christian Bible or a Quran. It took the ancient Africans 50-some generations to develop these moral and spiritual codes. And the reason why there are 42 is because there were 42 districts in Kemet at that time. At that time also, there were 10 categories of sins. Thus, the categories of sins that Moses used is what Moses used as the basis to formulate the 10 commandments, that they already existed. So some scholars argue that the Egyptian Book of the Dead can be considered the forefather of the Bible and the Quran. Likewise, the 42 negative confessions and the 10 categories of sins can be considered the forefather to the 10 commandments. We're not going to go into this too deep here today. I am planning on doing a future video on this where we actually dive in and see what the 42 negative confessions are and what the 10 categories of sin are. So that will be coming in the future. But my question to you, is your head spinning yet? Because I know it had my head spinning when I was researching all this. Now, back to Dr. Nantambu. And I quote, "The reality is that there is no such event as the Exodus. That's a a mythical lie. The historical truism is provided by Dr. Yosef ben Jacqueline. We're going to refer to him as Dr. J, because I always butcher names. In his magnum opus titled African Origins of the Major Western Religions, published in 1970. Dr. J states, it was only when Moses had to flee Pharaoh Ramses II's anger because he had murdered Ramses' representative soldier did Moses begin to plan the exodus of his fellow indigenous Egyptians of the Hebrew faith from Western to Eastern Egypt. Now, this is backed up in Exodus 2:11 through 15. However, this text does not state that the victim was a soldier, just that he was Egyptian. Dr. J also suggests that Ramses II supposedly chased Moses all over the Egyptian desert to avenge his soldier whom Moses killed. Meaning, Moses was charged with murder. Moses was not fleeing from the scene, or Moses was fleeing from the scene of his crime and not freeing his people from bondage. Moses was attempting to free his people from the punishment that his crime would have caused them. In other words, Moses committed a sin and ironically broke one of his own commandments. Interestingly enough, the original 42 negative confessions can be found inscribed on the walls of the temple of here we go again. Unas. And when looking at the Christian Bible, it even backs up the idea that Moses would have known the Egyptian spiritual teachings. Acts 7:22. So Moses was trained in all wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was well versed in his words and also in his deeds. So when Moses took these laws to the Israelites, he had to change them because he was speaking to people who had a lower understanding and who had not lived in a spiritual way. As such, Moses had to change the original text from "I have not" to "thou shalt not" and condense them down. According to Dr. Nantambu, the modern-day Christian Ten Commandments did not come from, nor were received from God above. They are African Kemetic in origin. I don't know if I agree with that. In general, there are many arguments out there about moral codes and ethics, that they are derived from other moral codes and ethics. In fact, there are other belief systems that have used the Ten Commandments as a basis for their own moral codes. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are the only ones that actually recognize the Ten Commandments as ethical standards. But many others, Buddhism, Hinduism, Jainism, etc., have similar laws or principles. And ironically, in the atheist Soviet Union, the moral code of the builder of communism was a set of rules that resemble and some say were derived from the Ten Commandments. Wasn't that interesting? Here's the deal. In society, we have to have moral laws to govern us and hold us accountable for our discretions. So in the end, does it really matter where they came from? We can take this thought a little deeper and even further here. All things come from the Creator and are governed under natural law, God's law. If we take time to really look at this in a deeper light, we can see each religion, creed, modality, country, and region all have these moral laws that come directly from natural or universal laws that are created by God to hold us accountable. Now, I will say here, any laws that infringe upon moral, ethical standards are not from God, but from man. I just wanted to clear that up. These laws influence and define and control all aspects of our human life, science, religion, and philosophy, and so on. These laws operate on all states of existence and include the material and spiritual parts of life. There is no separation. To quote Chief Orion Lyons, if you don't have a moral question in your governing process, you don't have a process that will survive. I know many will be upset at the shattering of the illusion that biblical stories may not have really happened or could have happened very differently from the way that we were all taught. And that's okay. That's your truth. Nobody can tell you what to think and feel. However, looking into this concept a little deeper, I find it interesting that even Wikipedia states, the modern scholarly consensus is that the figure of Moses is a mythical figure, and while, as William G. Denver writes, a Moses-like figure may have existed somewhere in the Transjordan region in the mid to late 13th century, archaeology cannot confirm his existence. The Washington Post, Time Magazine, PBS, and probably many others have all covered this very topic. Was Moses a real person? And did the Exodus really happen? I will have all of those articles linked in the description box also for you guys if you want to peruse that. With so many questions still running through my mind, trying to put all of these puzzle pieces together, my beautiful little spunky joy guide, Tink, and I don't know if you guys have ever worked with fairy energy, but it can be quite intense, and that's the reason why I can never sit still and constantly moving, especially when I'm working closely with her. So as this was all going on, she kept ringing in my ears saying, ask us, ask us. So that's what I did, and it did tell a story. Now, before I show you this clip of me actually creating the smoke billet, I'm going to apologize because some of it is blurred out. The reason why it is blurred out is because I had a moment of stupidity. When I do smoke billets, especially if I'm asking a specific question, I will on the back of it write the question and sign my name just to add extra intent into that. And then I realized, duh, you don't use your real name on this channel. Which is not a secret. I've never kept that a secret from anybody. I've been very forthcoming with that. Alice is not my real name, and that's okay. And there's reasons why I wanted to do it this way, and that's all explained in the Hi, I'm Alice video. So I blurred it out because you guys could see my name written on the back. So that's the reason why. But this, the clip I'm getting ready to show you is actually me creating the billet with the question written on the back. Within the smoke billet, you can see right off the bat an angel with its wings outstretched. To me, it feels very much like an archangel in his armor energy, hovering over two people that are huddled together. This tells me that the Exodus story, no matter if it actually really happened or not, it's about protection, divine guidance, and faith. It's about liberation of the oppressed and uncovering of darkness, shown by the cloaked figure. Very much what we are all witnessing right now on our planet. The Moses energy is a builder and an eye for a design and skillful construction, with an understanding of the mechanics and engineering of secrets behind everything. The Moses energy is good at starting new ventures, showing leadership, and the ability to work as a team to conquer a common goal. Looking at Moses metaphysically, it's a drawing out, extracting from seemingly negative conditions, which comes new growth. When we are in what seems to be the Egyptian darkness, again represented by the cloaked figure in the billet, we are ripe for change and a higher understanding. This progressive or drawing out process works from within outward, as applied to the universe and an upward trend of all things. It's a part of evolutionary law. Sound familiar? I'm telling you, there's no coincidences to have this topic right now. I will say, after I filmed this or after I looked at this billet a little closer, I noticed that there was an eye within there. If you guys are not familiar with the symbology of an eye, it is about illumination, and that's exactly what is happening right now on our planet. Is there's a lot of things that are becoming illuminated and coming out of the darkness into the light. Again, you gotta love how Spirit puts things together and to present it. It is what it is. So even looking at this, we still don't really have our answer and the complete picture as to why there are two sets of commandments, and taught one set that isn't even labeled in the Bible as the Ten Commandments, nor recorded on the stone tablets. I guess it's one we're just going to have to let go and accept it as is. And if you have not seen Secrets of the Ten Commandments, or is it 20, I will put a card somewhere on the screen for you. But before I let you go, if anyone is familiar with this symbol or has any insight, chime in the comments. It is the only thing I could not decode in the billet. I originally had looked at it and thought that it was very reminiscent of Aramaic, because I have had Aramaic symbols be shown to me before, even though I have no clue how to read or what Aramaic language is, but they show me Aramaic sometimes. And then I thought, well, no, maybe it's light language. So I really cannot figure out what this symbol is, and I have reached out to several people to ask, and nobody has any clue. So if you have a clue, or a thought, or a theory, or something, add it in there. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. I am choosing to leave my own personal opinion this time around out on if I think Moses really existed and if the Exodus story really happened. This is going to be addressed later on at some point in a Through the Looking Glass video, or possibly even in Alice's diary. I am not sure yet, because I haven't even made that concept in my mind. So I just want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope you guys have a happy, safe, wondrous week, and I will see you on the next one. As always, never stop questioning, never stop seeking, and never stop growing.